I'd like to come in on this from a slightly different angle, which is the angle of communities divided by water and building bridges. So I saw on the internet, so it's not to be trusted, picture of a bridge, road bridge that that linked two countries in Europe somewhere. It wasn't a particularly big bridge, but it was constructed from both ends, of course, and the two ends didn't meet because we have to specify the height of the bridge at the junction, at the middle of the river, and they both specified it as height above sea level, but they had different sea levels. I don't know if it's true or not. It's certainly quite realistic. Building a bridge is a very major operation. If you know England, then there's Bristol, which is a big major port, has been for a long time. And then there's South Wales, the other side of the River Severn, which is the big river in England. And for a long time, you had to go all the way up to Gloucester in order to take a land journey from Bristol to South Wales. So you have to travel 30 miles up the river, cross the river at Gloucester, and 30 miles down again. And Gloucester was quite an interesting place, actually, because it was the lowest point on the River Severn where you could cross it by bridge, and it was the highest point you could get to it by boat. So it had docks, even though it was sort of fairly close to the middle of the country. And then they built the Severn Bridge, which was an enormous enterprise, and it was highly successful. It was so successful, they built another one. And in the United States, you've got the Brooklyn Bridge, which Walt Whitman praised very, very highly. He wrote poetry about it. And the Golden Gate Bridge, and so forth. And what we have is Nelson and Martin belong to two communities. And in 1995, I thought that little me by myself could unify those two communities, and I couldn't. But that's the size of the problem, that we're inhabiting different worlds. And I think that for the moment, we have to manage with difficult transportation. And we hope that the routes are sufficient to allow it to happen. I live in Milton Keynes, which is on the path of the canal from London to Birmingham. So it's very important for the growth of Birmingham economically. And the canal had an interesting feature just north of where I live, which is it had to cross a river. So they built locks that took the boats down the river, then you crossed the river, and then you went up with locks again on the other side. And in I think it's the late 18th century, it might have been the early 19th century, they built a cast iron viaduct over the river to take the canal over the river. Further north at Stoke Bruin, there was a hill in the way. So the stuff had to be taken off the boats, carted round the other side of the hill and loaded onto different boats so that it completed its journey. But that was already better and more efficient than transporting the goods via the Thames in Oxford. And later on, the tunnel got completed. So bridges and tunnels are major economic investments. They speed communication, and we're not going to get one built quite soon. We're going to have to get used to this isolation and make the best of what there is. But at least we can talk to each other. You don't need a bridge to talk to each other by telephone. So make of that what you will. But it's not a problem that's going to be solved easily. So we have to make the best of what there is.